We do begin with breaking news. Former President Trump responding moments ago after history made in this country today. A president criminally charged, arrested, and appearing before the judge. Tonight, former President Donald Trump has been charged with 34 felonies, the first president, former or current, to ever become a criminal defendant. Trump himself today pleading not guilty. The charges unsealed, accusing the former president of falsifying business records to allegedly conceal other crimes. Prosecutors say a catch-and-kill scheme, catching stories, paying for them, and killing them, getting rid of them, concealing them from voters before, of course, the pivotal 2016 election. Prosecutors today citing 3 different hush money payments. The former president's solitary ride from Trump Tower today, watched on live television, the images all day. Former President Trump's route through the cleared streets of Manhattan to the criminal court downtown, alone in the SUV, accompanied only by his Secret Service agents. On the way, posting to social media, in fact, saying, "Seems so surreal. Wow, they're going to arrest me." A wave as he entered the courthouse to be fingerprinted and processed on a lower floor, then taken up in an elevator, usually reserved for judges, to the 15th floor courtroom, his eyes locked on that camera right there in the hallway. His aides say he was angry but resolute, aware of the stakes, they say. And then the images from inside the courtroom, where no TV cameras were allowed. Trump's team argued that that would lead to a circus-like atmosphere. The judge agreed. Only still photographers allowed in before it started. Court officer standing behind the defendant's table, the former president seated with his legal team, but standing and speaking for himself, answering not guilty to all 34 charges. At a brief news conference afterward, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg defending the case, answering the question, why now? Saying prosecutors now have new evidence they didn't have before. ABC senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky leading us off on this day and on the former president reacting just moments ago.
Tonight, Donald Trump, the first president in American history to become a criminal defendant. All day, New York City on high alert. Police lining the streets around Trump Tower as Trump raised his fist, giving a wave as he stepped into a car. As his motorcade made its way downtown, sources tell ABC News that apart from his Secret Service detail, the former president rode alone. No lawyers, no family, no advisors with him. Approaching criminal court in Lower Manhattan, Trump posting on social media, "Seems so surreal. Wow, they are going to arrest me." Outside court, small groups of supporters and opponents. Police keeping the peace as the former president arrived. Inside, Trump surrendered. He was arrested, booked, and processed like a common criminal. His fingerprints taken, but no mugshot. Trump was taken upstairs in an elevator usually reserved for judges. Stone-faced officers escorting him into the courtroom.
President Trump, will you come speak to us, President Trump?
Then that first picture, Trump at the defendant's table, his shoulders slumped, hands in his lap, flanked by his lawyers. Court officers standing behind him. Minutes later, the indictment unsealed. The former president himself pleading not guilty to those 34 felony charges that he repeatedly and fraudulently falsified New York business records to conceal criminal conduct that hid damaging information from the voting public during the 2016 presidential election. Trump then walking out of court without a word.
How did you plead, President Trump? How did you plead? President Trump.
Prosecutors allege Trump orchestrated a criminal scheme with his former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen and his friend, former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker, to pay hush money to at least 3 people, including porn actress Stormy Daniels.
A catch-and-kill scheme. That is a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election.
An effort allegedly to prevent damaging stories from tipping the balance in a tight election where voters were unhappy with both candidates. Prosecutors say in a 2015 Trump Tower meeting, Pecker told Trump he would act as the eyes and ears for the campaign by looking out for negative stories. And in June of 2016, just months before the election, they say Pecker informed Trump a woman, believed to be former Playboy model Karen McDougal, had approached the Enquirer, claiming she once had an affair with Trump. Prosecutors charged that Trump was concerned about the effect it could have on his candidacy, and he and Pecker and Cohen had a series of discussions about who should pay off McDougal to secure her silence. Ultimately, the Enquirer paid McDougal $150,000 for her story, but never published it. Prosecutors allege Trump also arranged for a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels a few months later, and the Enquirer paid off a Trump Tower doorman who was trying to sell a story about Trump fathering a child, a story the tabloid later concluded was not true. The indictment charges Trump disguised the criminal scheme by falsifying business records.
34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
But tonight, Trump, back in Florida, is defiant.
And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
And as we watched the former president fly back to Florida from New York, his lawyers came out to tell us they'd be filing a flurry of motions to reduce the charges or dismiss the case. Prosecutors wanted to go to trial in January 2024, but the defense said that would be way too aggressive. David?
Aaron Katersky leading us off here tonight.